Hey folks, I want to do a video today talking about something that I usually don't talk about and give you my reasons why. Um, this is because people wonder why I don't talk about this topic, having a bodybuilding channel on YouTube when it seems to be the most popular topic. And that is the topic of PEDs. So I want to just talk about it real quick and give my reasons for why I don't talk about it at all, really. Maybe later I'll talk about it some extent, but I want to give my reasons why I don't really address the topic. The first one, the most obvious one, is it's been done to death, right? For the past 5-6 years or so, probably, the majority of YouTube bodybuilding channels talk a lot about PEDs. It seems to become the main focus of discussion, unfortunately. And even worse, perhaps, is TikTok. There's a lot of bodybuilding TikToks out there with young guys running huge amounts of PEDs. Some who look like they hardly work out. Some who have no experience training, eating properly at all, and jump right on PEDs. And I think that's really a shame. I came from the late 80s, early 90s in bodybuilding a long time ago. That was when it might have been actually easier to get them back then, before they went Schedule II in the US. But people were cautious. They didn't just jump on it. And of course, they didn't have social media audiences to entertain with their abuse. So it really wasn't done that much. At the same time, there was a lot of secrecy about it. The magazines, of course, pretended that it didn't exist. And professionals wouldn't admit to anything. So it had its own mythology that was quite virulent back in the day. But because it was on social media, it really wasn't talked about much except person to person in gyms and whatnot, and rumors people heard about so-and-so and so-and-so. So it was kind of limited. And then the internet days came along, and it was still kind of quiet and an open secret people didn't want to talk about. And then people started talking about it, and it took off because people figured out, oh, this is a topic that people will come to my YouTube channel or whatever. I'll get my clicks, I'll get my views. And it drove a lot of popularity. If I look at some of the current YouTube channels that are not run by pro bodybuilders, therefore they don't have an audience of people who are flocking to them because of their bodybuilding, these bodybuilding channels largely have 70%, 75%, 80% of their content is about PEDs. Many of them, frankly, I don't think are very good bodybuilders, so it becomes almost like a PED channel, not a bodybuilder channel. And, while they are necessary for the sport at higher competition levels, I really don't think it's worth getting into as a non-competitor. And I'm not saying that from a biased or prejudiced point of view. I just think that if you make that choice, then it tends to be very hard to unwind, because most likely you'll do some damage to your endocrine system. You may be on HRT for the rest of your life. So if you do this at a young age, you're kind of fating yourself to being medicated until the day you die, which may not sound like a big deal now, but as decades roll by, it's going to become quite a burden and quite troublesome for you. So, the choice should not be made lightly if you're going to do that. I think if you're really passionate about reaching the top echelons of bodybuilding, and you have, first of all, the genetics to let you get there, and then the work ethic and everything else needed to get you there, then I think it's fine. It's a choice you make. It's a risk that is assumed in the profession that you choose. But doing it as a way to get attention, or as a way to quickly reach your goals, whatever those are, I think is a mistake. That's just my point of view. People can disagree with me. That's fine, whatever. But I just think it's a short-sighted choice, particularly if you're younger. Okay, and the internet's become full of so much of this discussion that's become normalized. People just accept usage nowadays and don't talk about it unless they're like an extreme hardcore natural point of view, which again is also a shame. It's become too radicalized. The whole, the 2 points of view on this, have become too far apart. It wasn't that far apart when I was first training. It was just kind of something that, you got into when you got serious about competing. And even back then you could compete a little bit without it. Even though there weren't dedicated natural shows back then. But now it's something else. It's completely different. And 90% of the people using have no intention of stepping on stage, which is a shame. And they're just doing it for views or for internet, social media attention. And I think it's really unfortunate. So I think it's become, too much. It's become normalized. And that's one of the big reasons why I don't talk about it. Another reason is, frankly, I'm a coach. So, if I talk about PEDs all the time like some of these other guys do, then people will assume, oh, he talks about it, so all of his clients must be on it. And that's not true. It should never be true. That's an incorrect assumption to make anyways. But adding to that by speaking about them a lot and giving what somebody sees as evidence does not benefit the people who trust me to take care of them as a coach. Okay. Of course, some people that I take care of will be users of PEDs because they've chosen to compete and reach higher levels of competition. But I'm always about safe usage, minimal harm reduction it's called, and have been since long before it was popular, since decades past. I've always believed in, whatever it is, frankly, whatever medication you take, the least effective dose is what you should be using. Now, whether it's, PEDs or it's Tylenol, too much is never a good thing. Yeah, it really isn't. And that's overlooked and kind of accepted. So for the sake of others, not just myself, I also don't want to talk about them too much because it just makes it seem like if it's a huge part of my world, then it must be a part of the world that everybody associates with me, and that's simply not the case. So that's another reason I don't talk about them. Another reason is, frankly, a lot of places where people are using, it's not legal. People have kind of forgotten about that or dismissed it to some extent. They don't care about it anymore, but it's a risk. It is there. So it should be considered when you're talking about this stuff and not simply dismissed or accepted because everybody else is accepting it and talking about it. I think it is important. I think it shouldn't be simply ignored. And, maybe a final point is that no matter what you say, and this has been talked about by other people, no matter what you say about dosages or compounds, no one's ever going to believe you. No one wants to believe that back in the old days people took less than they do now. Because most people who use nowadays, because so many people do, need a lot because they don't have the genetics, they think everybody must use a lot. And that's not true. It simply isn't. That's just not the truth of genetics. The very best at anything respond well to everything. Training, food, pharmaceuticals, whatever. They're in a different league. And don't think that high use of pharmaceuticals is what got them where they are. It's simply not the case. If you removed PEDs from the sport, people would look different, but the same people would be winning. This has been seen the few times where the IFBB back in, I think it was like 1990 Olympia or something, they tested. People didn't look as good, but the same people won for the most part, because of the genetics, because of the way they train, because of the way they eat. That comes first. And people have been putting PEDs first. And because PEDs, even though now they're out in the open, everybody talks about them too much, they still have a mystique. They are still the forbidden fruit. So they still receive the most distortion of any aspect of bodybuilding. If no one could see anybody train, if everybody hid the way they trained, that would be, the big curiosity factor. Back in the old days, I'm talking 30, 40, 50 years ago, bodybuilding, when people were separated by oceans. There were rumors about how the Europeans trained and how the Americans trained and blah, 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 and all these kind of mystiques about training. And that was why they looked the way they did. And that's why they were better than me or something, because you couldn't see the training. So that was the big secret, and that became the topic of discussion. Same with eating. If you didn't see people eat because there was no internet, you actually sit with somebody to watch them eat. That also became a bit of a secret. That's why the rumors in the late 80s, early 90s came with people like Victor Richards eating 8,000, 10,000 calories a day and stuff came from. I don't think that's humanly possible to eat that much, even though I'm sure he ate quite a lot. These things happened because people couldn't see it, because it was hidden from view. And therefore it became a legend, a mystique, a mythology. So whatever it is that's hidden, to some extent, will always get that halo effect, that this must be the secret, because I am not privy to actual visual first-hand knowledge. So I suppose it's inevitable that it's this way, but I still think it's unfortunate. I think people should keep that in mind when they're looking at this topic, that it's only because it is somewhat behind the covers a little bit still, even though it's talked about a lot. There's this lack of certainty, so therefore there's massive speculation. And that'll be true no matter what aspect of the sport is hidden from view and speculated on. So keep that in mind. But for the most part, I don't think people should be too concerned about what this pro or that pro does or doesn't do, because you're not them. Your body doesn't respond the same way theirs does to training or food, so why should it respond the same way to anything else? And that's just reality. It's not as simple as you think it is. Let's put it that way. It's also not as complicated as you think it is, either. The best thing to do is get out there and train really hard, eat properly, get your rest, and see where your genetics take you. Okay, probably some might take you further than you think. You know what I mean? It's entirely possible, but you'll never know unless you give them a chance to, to get there naturally, to get there on your own, find out what you're actually capable of. And by that time, you might have an idea of, is this something I want to continue? Is this something I want to do more of professionally? You won't know until you get to that point. Which is why when I have people come up to me and they want to get coached, and what's your goal? Like, I want to be an FBB pro. It's like, of course you do. Everybody does. We all did back in the day too. But until you get on stage, until you've done, a diet, until you've actually worked that hard and seen what your body's capable of and what you are capable of mentally as well, you don't know if this is something you want to keep doing for years on end. And I highly recommend doing that naturally first before you take that step that may be irreversible. It's just become too normalized, I think. And people haven't really thought about that enough, because they're busy thinking about the secrets. They're busy thinking about speculating about what so-and-so does. It doesn't matter. You're not them. You never will be. You have to be the best you can be. Okay? And nothing in a bottle or a logbook or even in a refrigerator is going to get you there, because you have to find out what works best for you. And that takes time too. You have to give yourself time. Time and the journey can be the best part of bodybuilding. Don't force that time to blow by too quickly, and then the time thereafter be regrettable time. Yeah, you only got one life and you want to live it the way you want to do, but you only got one life. And if you impair it in some way, that may last until the day you die. So consider these things, And this is why I don't talk about this stuff too much, because in many ways it's pointless. It's not where the progress is to be made, especially if you're not a competitor. Especially if you're not a high-level competitor. So let's keep that in mind. I may talk about this stuff more in the future. I don't know. I really don't want to. To me, it's kind of like a cop-out to get attention in YouTube. Talking about this stuff, make a title with whatever pharmaceutical name you want, hashtag it. You can get views. That's not the approach I want to take. That's not why I'm here. It's not why I do this. I'm here after 4 decades in this sport. Still healthy at 55, 56 this year. Still training really hard 3 times a week because I've been smart. And I want to help other people be smart and reach their goals, but also keep their health at the same time. And also enjoy their lives and have a family and have a job at the same time. It can be done. And I'm doing this because I want to lend my experience in those areas to help other people. Not to just blow up, quickly and be famous and have, hundreds of clients. That wouldn't be satisfying to me. I wouldn't feel good about that. So, yeah, that's why my approach is different. Like it or hate it, believe me or don't, I don't know. Some people may find this disingenuous or something, I don't know. Whatever. You can think what you want to think. But, I have kind of my way of looking at things. Other people have different ways. And that's my reasoning. So until next time, get out there, get in the gym, train hard, eat well, rest, recover, and enjoy the rest of your life. Okay? All right, everybody. Take care until next time. Bye-bye.